Good morning. Would you quit messing with me, please? Man, I guess, some of my thoughts this morning are some of the same observations and ideas that some others may have had or are having, you know. But even though that may be true, it's still hard to understand how people misplace their anger and perpetuate things that they know are not true. Now, just like a lot of things, man, people will do things untoward, if it benefits them, monetarily, or if they stand to gain something by propagating falsehoods. And it's not like those types of behavior started this morning when the sun rose. But be that as it may, it's still perplexing and looking at people and their behaviors and their observations of this stew of chaos that we have brewing here on this piece of land that we live on. Because as a child, man, like the first time you ever got caught doing something, and your parents was about to bust your ass, and you came up with what you swore was like some magical fairy tale to get you out of the frying pan, but they were seeing through it the whole time, I'll use myself as an example. As a very small child, one morning my mom was getting up for work or whatever, and I used to make her coffee in the mornings when I was small. But since I had already gathered an affinity for misbehaving, I decided after I made her coffee, since she was probably still doing her makeup or doing her hair, that I was going to steal a cigarette off of her and then go in the bathroom and smoke it. But I'm so low that I climbed up on the toilet, then climbed up on the sink so I could look in the mirror while I was smoking. It was a great story. But when I was tiny, I was afraid of heights. So when I went to light the damn cigarette up, I got annoyed from being up so high, but I still wanted to see myself smoking in the mirror. And when you're tiny like that, you ain't got trapeze artists like balance. So as I'm getting annoyed, I'm starting to lose my balance, and in the process of all this tomfoolery that I shouldn't have been doing, I dropped my cigarette. And it started burning the carpet. Because I was too little to know, like, they'll pick it up and throw it in the toilet or something. I just started panicking and it started burning the carpet. At the same time, you know, I heard my mother coming back down the stairs from upstairs. You know, so my genius idea was just to flip the bathroom mat over, like with the cigarette underneath it, and it was still lit. And then just hurry up out of the bathroom, right? You know, needless to say, you know, someone with Sherlock Holmes type intelligence to look through this CSI mystery and figure out I was doing some shit I wasn't supposed to be doing. And my lie didn't help it, because it was obvious it was a lie. And the only way for me to try to get out of that after being caught in a lie was to tell another lie, you know. And that's just an innocent story of a child misbehaving, which anybody who has children, you know, you can relate. But it sort of leans towards some of the things that I began the video with, man. Like, you see people every day, whether it's on print media or cable media, news channels, social media, getting upset at each other and fighting and just overall acting a fool. And it seems to me, the more I study it, that it's a lack of understanding of their circumstances. You know, every individual loves to live under the illusion that they control everything in their sphere, you know, that the only sphere of influence within your sphere is you, you know. And so you have different segments of our society doing behavior that's not complex, but you would think is common sense. You know, that common sense would dictate the proper behavior in a given situation, or your reaction to a given behavior. You know? And the reason why I mention history is, as when I spoke of the sun, there's nothing new under it. You know, there may be tiny aspects of one of these 7 or 8 things that are going on right now that are creating this unique dynamic, you know, where you have so many stressors to the foundation that if you keep adding to it, it's going to collapse, you know. But for the life of me, it just seems as though very few are focused on reversing this. You know, it's like tons are just content with the shit show, you know? But like so many of the like overarching themes of some of these things are like an instant replay when you watch a sports game. A lot of it's from the same playbook, man. And if you use like very basic deduction principles, it leads you to believe like there are large segments in American society. One moment, while this vehicle goes by. It leads you to believe that there are large segments of American society who have not spent a lot of time studying history, you know? Because if you have no prior knowledge of a scheme or a game plan, you're less apt to be able to deduce what's going on as it goes down or when it initially begins. So that as things unfold the whole rest of the time, you run around chasing your tail, trying to figure out up from down and down from up. So you see many different groups of people, because our society is so segmented and segregated, that each believes they have this inalienable truth about what they're seeing, you know? But I think like an aspect of it is like a defense mechanism, where there are folks that are really confused about it, but as a defense mechanism to not show their hand, similar to a poker player, or give a tell, they use these things to try to put lipstick on a pig, you know? But how many times do you have to see something before you stop going for the okie doke, you know? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. You know, it don't need to be a third, fourth, and fifth time before people as a whole realize that there's some fuckery afoot, you know? And it don't have to be like some enigmatic puzzle that cannot be deciphered, you know? Because a lot of things that are taking place are like plain sight type of things, you know, but it plays out in a manner where human nature, you know, we see designs and patterns and things that sometimes don't necessarily have designs or patterns, you know. And if you don't go past that point and you just take the initial for face value, you know, then there's no ground for you to stand on that, you know, once you make that choice, you know? Because we have all these different, like, societal issues that have needed to be addressed for a very long time, you know, and if people are unwilling to take accountability for bad actions, there can be no progress, because a lot of it is just lip service, man. No different than generations before, Because I don't know about you, but in order to rectify a corrupt system, most think destroy and rebuild, But are we as a nation built for destroy and rebuild today in 2020 right now? If that's not the case, then at the very least, point for point, area by area, things need to be reconsidered, not just from a technical standpoint, but from a compassionate standpoint. Because the same way that I was fed a lot of bullpucky in school, same thing happened to other people, And a lot of folks in charge of teaching us the stuff knew that it was bullshit. So let's take that education. If we go back 50 years, so we go back to 1970, after, the turmoil and stuff of the 60s. And instead of continuing with another generation of just lies and deceit for power and for money, and just tell the truth, the generations that came after that could have a better understanding. And we see some changes that are being discussed about our educational system. And that is a good thing, but if you can only go off of past behaviors as an indicator of what a person or a group of people may do in the future, otherwise it's like guessing the numbers or throwing some dice, And me personally, all these areas, like these 7 or 8, 9, 10 areas that need to be, put out on the table and rearranged in their proper format for things like equality and things to take place. But I think it's more likely for it to be like baby steps and things that may seem like progress when they really aren't, which never leads to true reconciliation and never leads to recompense for wrongdoing. No matter, not even just the most serious things, for even trivial things. Like in history, they may not be trivial, but they're trivial in the sense of telling the truth or a lie. Like, what did my first history teacher, stand to benefit from teaching me something basic that every American learns, like Thanksgiving was some big dinner or something, and that's all it was, and people was happy, And that's what I mean about some of this stuff, because just like my generation started to move away from working with things with their hands, as my parents and grandparents did, whereas, the generations after me are less apt to do analog things, like researching through books and stuff. And I believe just by observing people that people are more likely to take that vacation easier route and do all this through sound bites, video clips, 128 character tweets, Instagram posts, IG Live, FB Live, you know. And you can wade your way through some truth and stuff, but the thing that's going to last you is something you can see, taste, touch, or smell, you know? Because some of the common things, like, I don't see, like, if you have someone who's greedy, who not only wants for themselves or, aren't just content with the fruits of their labor, they want not just theirs, but yours too, In my estimation, where is the area in that equation where you're going to even entertain the idea of making that an even playing field, let alone a change your behavior, Because I admire these young people getting out there and getting after it. But I wonder if they really think that all the things that create the chasm of wealth inequality, of the imbalance of education, of all the things that are tied into that, like generational wealth, or if it's not generational wealth, being able to get that foundation with something like a secondary education so you can leapfrog off of that, Because if I'm a greedy person, if I'm a selfish person, if I'm only out for myself, and I got $100, and I know, like, my neighborhood or my home, and when you use that in context with our country, if I share that equally, that it'll make it a better place. That person, it's not, they ain't going for that, So what are you left with? What are your options? Because I believe the reason why people are unnecessarily angry at each other, firing shots at each other, and got it aimed at the wrong direction, is because not everybody is morons. Some people see the writing on the wall, but if you think of something as simple as, these shrines and altars to hateful, horrible people. Like, folks got to go down out there and take it down with their hands versus somebody just being a good person. Like, you know what? In my heart, I know that this is some hateful, oppressive bullshit. And I'm a make it happen because that's what it is. you know. And people at large got to understand, like, if that can't happen, you know, something that's way at the bottom of things that need to go, or paradigms that need to shift, you know, then you got to know, like, those things ain't gonna be something that's, you know, negotiated, or, you know, it's gonna be things that are taken, you know. And it's so ironic because all these different places in the world that have turmoil and the just not just the haves and have-nots, but the gulf that makes the haves and have-nots not even an accurate description of how bad it is. Like, all these things, they revolve around some of the things that I started with the video with. A person who is honest and being truthful, even if what they're speaking of reflects badly on them, is able to say, hey, this is what it is, I understand this, I agree with this, I disagree with that, I admit to this, or this is not true, I did not do that, and go from there, you know. It reminds me of some of the novels that I've read. You know, like, people are more content with watching the world burn than trying to find solutions to stop it from burning, you know? Because I don't think it's like a really, I think the lies are complex, but I don't think the solutions are. I don't think that the ways to fix these things are complex. I think they're very straightforward. You know, but how many times do you see a person that they know they wrong or something like that, and they just come out with it, accept the repercussions, and make amends? You know, atone for whatever it is that took place, especially if it was something by their hand or by their design, you know. And since we experienced this journey in a first person perspective, all I can do is, when I look at stuff, you know, when I was young, I know that what took me a longer amount of time on this planet to make tangible changes in my life to improve it, what held that back for me was being able to stop blaming other people. And even if other people had a hand in it, I needed to first address the things within myself and then attack it, you know. Because I think the power dynamic is so out of whack and so out of balance that the people that have dirt on their shoes, blood on their hands, they don't feel like they have to correct any of this. But that's the trip for me, because this whole shit goes kaput if people can't do those very basic things, you know? I do have a positive feeling about a decent amount of the things that have changed in the last few months. Because some of the things are things that, at least for my 40 years here, that, there's a lot of times where I never had an indication that any of that would change or happen, or even, just a little bit move, you know? I also think we're in a unique time where if the right steps are taken, that it don't necessarily have to, as a whole, move at the same speed as other things that have taken place. Like the length of amount of time that it took from like things like you know pivotal things as far as on a scale of recent history in America, like Brown versus education, the things that Dr. King did, women's suffrage, and the right to choose, and all these different things. Like all of those things. You can rewind it even further, and those things are the blink of an eye in the history of us as a species. And we still can't get right. If there was no money or land on the line or power for any of this, people would do the right things and make the right choices and get things right. But shit is so corrupt, and people are so intent on not just me, myself, and I, but as long as my circle and everything is tight, I don't give a damn about anything else or whatever the hell else is going on outside of this. It's going to take a monumental shift in consciousness and compassion and understanding and self-analyzation. That's the funny thing that's a struggle for me as an extremely positive person. Like, I think all that I am today is because of the person I used to be, not in spite of it, I think had I not been an asshole, had I not been selfish, had I not been self-destructive, when the light bulb finally turned on and the wheel started turning and the roles, I would have never had the frame of reference to make the needed changes. I got to end the video because I'm running out of memory, but I'll come back, damn it.